Perfect. Before we begin, everybody, thank you for joining us. I have just a few Zoom meeting best practices and etiquette for attendees that have come under Robert's Rules of Orders during this pandemic time. So I'd just like to review these bullet points. We're going to be following closely Robert's Rules of Orders as our guidance for tonight's meeting in an effort to try and keep these meetings productive and timely. So all meeting attendees will please abide by the following guidelines during all board and commission meetings held by Zoom video and audio conferencing. Meeting attendees will adhere to standard professional meeting decorum when interacting online or by conference phone. Attendees will use language respectful of all participants. Attendees will note that all video and audio meetings will be recorded and available per the Freedom of Information Act. When joining a meeting, all microphones will be on mute. Mute will be unmuted during public comment only or when the floor is given after being acknowledged by the chair. Attendees will create a distraction-free environment. If on video, background should be neutral and audio should be muted until public comment. Please no eating, typing, or sidebar conversations while meeting is taking place. Side conversations are very distracting and whispers are easily picked up on the microphones. Avoid noisy activities like typing while your microphone is on, and be sure any noisy devices in the background are turned off or muted. Attendees taking part in the meeting during public comment will identify themselves and state their name before speaking. Then the chair will recognize the speaker. We're doing our best to make sure that the public is safe and able to attend these meetings. Please keep in mind that this is new to all of us as well, and we will work to make adjustments as we navigate this new meeting environment. We appreciate your patience and understanding during this unprecedented global pandemic circumstance. So with that, I'd like to go ahead and call the Village of Romeo Board of Trustees meeting for September 21st to order. Okay. Let's see, if you would please call the roll, Clerk Trapp.
You're ready for roll call right now?
Yes.
Okay. Bartholomew?
Here.
Edwards?
Here.
Fowler?
Yes.
Hart?
Here.
Poznansky?
Poznansky here.
Seidel?
Title here.
President Malzahn?
Here.
All is present.
Thank you. We have a quorum. Would you all please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Let me admit Al in here, and we will slide over. Okay, at this time on our agenda, we have approval of the minutes from August 17th, 2020. In your packet, you should have a copy of those. Is there any?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes. I do have one correction, I believe.
Okay, Trustee Hart.
Yes, and this is unfinished business, number 9. The motion to vacate the alley, I believe, was Fowler and not myself.
All right. So we have a motion by Hart. Do we have support?
Poznansky will support that.
All right. Is there any other discussion?
Poznansky has a question.
Okay. Go ahead.
This is something that, take it as you will, on our agenda where it has a location. Should we be putting that on there if it's technically Zoom? It's just
that's why the Zoom instructions are at the top of the agenda.
I understand, but it just might be confusing that there's a location on there when it's really not there. It's just a thought.
Duly noted. Anything else?
And then, yes, under number 6, correspondence, it says none. I read a letter at that time from a resident. Should be noted there.
At this time, I would like to clarify that correspondence, as per Robert's Rule of Order and the General Village Law, all correspondence is received by the secretary, the board secretary, which is the clerk's office. That letter was not received or acknowledged through the clerk's office. Therefore, I am withholding it from the meeting minutes.
It's okay if it didn't fall within the rules, but to say that something didn't happen in the minutes because you didn't like it is not allowed. You have to put the minutes as they're stated.
I'm
You could
sorry.
say that it was read, and then you could say that it shouldn't have been, but you have to say that it was read.
No, I'm sorry. I clarify this with our legal department, and no, we do not.
So you're just not going to do the minutes correctly. Didn't the clerk take a class
There
on
was
this?
zero correspondence that was received by the clerk of this board.
Because I'm confused then, because in our own rules of order, it doesn't clarify any of that. The Romeo Village Council bylaws, rules of procedure. Number 2, the agenda.
Trustee Poznanski, may I
It's
interrupt, please?
No, you may not. Under G, correspondences, it does not define any of what you're saying. It just says correspondences. So I read it because I received a correspondence.
Are you completed?
Yes, you may go.
Yes. The general village law and Robert's rules are also adopted by reference, and that is where it is stated that all correspondence shall be received and acknowledged by the secretary of the board. The letter was not done in such a manner. Therefore, the instructions would be any correspondence should be submitted to this office.
Well, duly
It was
noted.
not received that way, and therefore, I'm not suggesting that it be admitted to the meeting minutes.
Duly noted for future reference, but it happened in the meeting minutes at that time. You need to follow the rules of minutes.
We have a motion on the table by trustee Hart. We have support by trustee Poznanski. Can we please take a roll?
Can you clarify that as what's to be included in the minutes?
So far, trustee Hart's motion was to change business number 9 to correct that motion. I believe that's what his motion was. Would you like to restate that, trustee Hart?
No.
Okay,
That should be Hart, no.
all right. Was there any further discussion? All right, hearing none, roll call, please.
Hart,
Yes, Hart, yes.
Poznanski,
Poznanski, no.
Bartholomew,
Yes.
Edwards,
Yes.
Fowler, Fowler, do you have a vote?
Trustee Fowler, you'll need to unmute yourself.
Yeah, now, this was just a change from Hart to Fowler, that's correct? As I
That's
understood?
correct.
Okay, yes.
Seidel,
Seidel, yes.
President Melzan,
Yes,
6-1, motion carries.
motion carried. All right. In your packets, you have a copy of the check register report and the vendor bills. Vendor bills are in the total of $31,320.94. The check register reflects $1,147,991.73. Chair would entertain a motion to approve the bills.
Motion to approve the bill?
We have a motion by Bartholomew. Do we have support?
Support by Edwards.
Was that trustee Edwards? I'm sorry, I didn't catch who supported that.
Edwards.
Edwards. Any discussion? All right. Hearing
Poznanski,
none.
here's a question. I'm sorry.
Yes.
On our check register, about halfway down is the Mount Vernon tree. Last month, we were shown the bill to approve for $36.50, but this bill is for $48.50. What extra work was done? And
There was a,
go ahead.
I'm sorry. Go finish your question, please. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
And can that go through without further approval of the extra amount?
We had an emergency tree that was discovered that was endangered, so I went ahead and approved that additional scope of work to be done. That was a tree on Pleasant Street, so the bill is combined for my approval and then the work that council approved.
Okay. And then I do have a second question. In our electronic packet, there was no budget in there. I'm curious as to why we didn't have a budget provided to us this time.
Tim was busy taking care of our audit, and he will get that emailed out to you tomorrow.
Okay. I would like to state, though, this is the second month in a row that we haven't accepted or received, rather, our electronic packets until Monday when we were supposed to have them the prior Thursday. I see this as fiscally irresponsible that we're supposed to be making these motions and decisions when we're not getting our information on time.
Duly noted. Anything else?
That's it.
Roll call, please.
Bartholomew,
Yes.
Edwards,
Yes.
Seidel,
Seidel, yes.
Poznanski,
Poznanski, no.
Hart,
Yes, Hart, yes.
Fowler,
No.
President Malzahn.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-2.
Now is the time for the approval of the agenda. I did want to add for special presentations in your packet, it said there would be none, but I received confirmation from Paul O'Meara from Rowe Engineering that he would be indeed attending this meeting tonight to give the presentation for the pedestrian crossing item. So I'd like to add that under special presentations.
I'll make a motion, Hart, to approve the agenda with the addition of a special presentation by Rowe.
Poznanski, support.
We have a motion by Hart, we have support by Poznanski. Any other additions or deletions? Roll call, please.
Hart,
Hart, yes.
Poznanski,
Poznanski, yes.
Seidel,
Yes.
Bartholomew,
Yes.
I'm sorry, Fowler,
Yes. Yes.
Edwards,
Yes.
President Malzahn.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Motion carries 7-0. Okay. At this time, I'm going to turn the floor over and introduce to you Paul O'Meara. He is the project manager for Rowe Professional Services. Mr. O'Meara, you have the floor.
All right, thank you. Hello, everybody. I appreciate having the chance to be with you tonight. I assume that you've had some time to look over my letter, so I'm just going to summarize some of the important points within it. I met with President Malzahn last month, as well as Greg Tarr, to discuss the concept of improving the crosswalk situation throughout the downtown area. We talked about having improvements done at 7 different intersections. Of course, the main intersection of Main and St. Clair, as well as radiating out in all 4 directions from there. So I don't need to review those locations with you, but I did want to review, there's like 5 different elements to this project that would need to be involved as we're recommending it. The biggest part of it is the ADA, or the American Disabilities Act ramps that would need to be installed. Back when these streets were built many, many years ago, the philosophy was if you don't have a traffic signal or a stop sign, you really shouldn't be encouraging pedestrians to cross because it's dangerous. So there are no ramps pointing in the directions that we're suggesting today to put in that would actually encourage crossing at for the main streets at other locations other than where the traffic signal is. So in order to do that with today's standards, you'd have to remove a lot of concrete at each location in order to put in the handicap ramps with the proper detected plates for the blind or the visually impaired, as well as a lot flatter surface near the street so that if you're in a handicap or in like a wheelchair situation, that you've got control of the situation. So that's the biggest expense that's involved in this construction. And then with the crosswalks themselves, there's about 4 different things to consider. There's a few minor spots in these areas where the road is actually quite rough, so those would have to be patched with asphalt first in order to build the proper crosswalk. So there is some money in the estimate for that. And then probably the largest expense, of course, is the Endura blend. I included a sales brochure on that. It's kind of an amazing product that's been available about 10 years now. And if you drive M59, you'll probably notice where it's been reconstructed directly south of you at several intersections through the Sterling Heights area. There's MDOT's put in the Endura blend crosswalks there just last year in several locations. And it's expected that those will last many, many years. They might fade a little bit over time, but they'll really be able to hold up well under all that traffic because they've been doing well for over 10 years in other locations. So that's like a 3-part process where at first you would put down a patch material that's similar to what's being used. It's like a cement paste that would be put in the cracks first to make sure it's a smooth surface. And then there's a primer coat that's gray, and then the final red coat goes down with a stencil so that the brick pattern gets shaped into, and it's only like a 1/4 inch thick, so it really doesn't create a trip hazard of any sort. So then you would also want to, I mean, this is an option, you can potentially supplement it with the white lines that we've shown in the pictures, just to help grab the eye of the driver that something's happening and that they should be slowing down. And that would be a more normal pavement marking material that does fade after 3 or 4 years. And then the pedestrian signs, which are shown there in that picture, that's kind of an option that we would take input from you all as to which one you would prefer. The more typical pedestrian man sign with the arrow on the left, or more recently, sometimes people use the yield sign here for pedestrians. So that kind of makes it clear for drivers that may not be paying attention or don't necessarily know the rules that well that they should be stopping when there's a pedestrian in the crosswalk. So either one of those would work well. So we would recommend putting those on both sides of the crosswalks, both sides of the street, I should say, at the sidewalk, so that you see it visibly for both sides and it really catches your eye that something's happening and that you should slow down. So looking at all 7 intersections, the main intersection's the only one that's kind of different because we've got 2 ramps there today and 2 ramps are missing. So we would recommend putting in the 2 ramps on the west intersection side, and then crosswalks on all 4 legs. So that's, I don't think that's in any of those pictures there.
Which intersection was that, Paul?
There it is, the top 2 pictures
Okay.
there.
Yes.
So the main intersection we're recommending putting on all 4 legs would have a new crosswalk, and ramps would be existing on 2 sides and new on the other side. And then the other 6 intersections would just get 1 enhanced crosswalk crossing the main street, and then there would be new handicap ramps on both sides of that ramp. So there'd be 2 new ramps at each intersection. And then also at Newberry and at Lafayette, it was suggested that we could put in bump outs. So that's where the crosswalk gets extended out further into the center of the street so that it's not such a long walk across the street. And that helps make the pedestrian feel like it's not such a daring move to cross the street. It also kind of helps frame the intersection so the signs come out further into the road and make it more visible. And also makes it easier to build the handicap ramps. The Newberry intersection I called out in the report is probably the most challenging. The corner where the Masonic Temple is located, the floor is up so high in the building compared to the street that in order to build the slopes for the sidewalks meeting standards, as well as getting it down to the road, is going to be a real challenge. So one of the most difficult I've seen. Well, that was on the other view. If you want to go back.
Yes. Yep, on the first one. Sorry.
That's the middle row, the left side has the most challenging situation there. But I think it's doable. There is more cost involved there. There'd probably be a planter box that you'd have to put in the middle so that you've got one sidewalk up high at the building and then another one down low in front of the box out by the road. A few other things to point out was that I did not include any brick replacement in the sidewalks themselves. This would be just standard concrete. So it wasn't really clear that anything special was being considered at this point, and that obviously would drive up the cost. The grant that we're considering is a Transportation Alternatives Program grant, and that's through SEMCOG and MDOT. It has several $1 million each year to release on that. So if we apply by October 14th, they'll be able to review our application. It does take several months for them to go through the applications and get an answer back. And that grant would be for either 2022 or 2023 construction. Romeo can help make that decision based on what fits best for your time schedule and your budget. And then on the third page of my letter, I recommended a 35% local grant match. That's for the construction costs, which we're recommending is about $312,000 in this proposal. So 35% of that would be about $109,000. You could go up or down on that. As low as 20% is acceptable as a consideration. And then, of course, you can go further up. The higher you go up, apparently the higher the points you get towards getting the grant approved. I'm recommending 35% because they say from historically in the past, the successful applicants are usually at about 30 to 40% of a match. And they typically accept a lower match if it's a real expensive project, which I don't think this would qualify under that. So also the planning and the design and the administration, the engineering part of it would have to be paid by the local entities. So that's about $71,000 in this instance. So this is about $180,000 local project, and you would get about $202,000 in a grant. So there are a couple alternatives in my letter as well to help reduce costs, and we can talk about those if you want to do that. But I can take questions.
Are there any trustees that have any questions for Mr. O'Meara at this time?
Yes, I have one, Christine.
Trustee Fowler, you have the floor.
All right, so you would be applying for the grant for the village?
Yes.
And my next question is, then we would have to basically make up the 20 to 35% that the grant is short of, is that correct?
Right.
So that would come out of our general fund?
Well, that's a local decision as to where you want to obtain the funds.
That would probably come out of our streets at this point, but that would be in budget year either 2022 or 2023. So it's not out of this current fiscal year's budget.
What we're currently hearing from a bunch of the residents is that, you know, they're getting their sidewalks repaired in front of their houses where they have to pay half or a portion of it. And anything dealing with downtown improvement to the sidewalks, like they're really skeptical of their tax dollars going towards that when they have to dig into their pocket and pay for the repairs in front of their homes. So this is just one of those concerns that it sounds great to build out the curbs, but I think we should take care of the residents first. I understand downtown needs it, but until we can make some restitutions for them, it's hard to look at something like this. That was my concern.
Okay, thank you. So just to clarify that, Zach, this is not the sidewalks. This is the streets and pedestrian crossing. This
Correct.
is being proposed as a joint project between the DDA, the tax that the business owners already pay into that fund, and half then by the village. That's what I'm proposing. So out of our street money, out of our Act 51 money, it wouldn't be coming necessarily from tax dollars from the residents. This would be paid for by government-funded money and the DDA tax money that's already paid in by those business owners, not the residents.
So you're saying none of the residents' tax dollars will be going to this project at all?
I would not anticipate that unless the scope of the project would change. But at this point, $180,000 would be split between the DDA and our street money.
And doesn't some of the taxpayers' dollars go into the street funds?
No.
And I'm reading here.
Well, I shouldn't say that because
yes,
they
I
do,
was
depending
gonna
on
say,
if you're paying for salary, if you're paying for, our DPW wouldn't be administering or doing this project.
And it says if we don't go to the 35%, then increases will be implemented. So that means the price of the 180 will go up then.
Yes. That's just an estimate. If you go out to bid and you bid the project and it comes in more expensive than expected, then that extra would be on the village.
It would be on us, yes. All right, those are just some of the concerns that we're hearing in the streets.
Thank you. Are there any other trustees that have any questions?
Yeah, Christine, this is Seidel.
Yeah, you have the floor, Randy.
I think it's important to understand that this downtown is part of the village, and this is focused on the Disability Act, right? I mean, this is not just a random nice thing that we're trying to do. I mean, this is to make our streets safer, make our crosswalks for our residents safer, make people's trips to the downtown area safer. So, I mean, it's not just something pretty we want to do. I mean, this has core, safety issues around it. So it's not a nicety, and I just want to make that clear. It's not the sidewalk versus the downtown. It's something that needs to be done to improve the safety of downtown for visitors and residents. That was it. Thanks, Christine.
Thank you, Mr. Seidel. Yes, as Mr. O'Meara mentioned, the bulk of this cost is coming from the ADA, bringing our streets and our crosswalks into ADA compliance for public safety.
Poznansky, question? I have a question. Poznansky?
Yes. Poznansky, you have the floor.
Where I can agree with Randy to a point. What concerns me is that these dollars that are being spent on this, when we already have streets that need attention, which then would actually increase what people will have to pay to repair those roads. So great project, definitely something that needs to be done in the future, but I think it needs to hold off for now. Done.
All right, thank you. Any other trustees at this point? Paul, I had a question that was brought forward. I've seen on social media where there was some suggestion and some polls that were taken regarding parking versus pedestrian crossings. And could you just elaborate on any grants available for parking?
Well, I've been in this business a long time. I've not historically ever seen grants out there for local parking projects. That's typically something that would have to be raised by the local entity.
So while this grant is available, we would have the option to gain 35% or about a $200,000 cost share from SEMCOG. That's who is granting these funds, correct?
Correct.
So if we were to doing this project ourselves, it would cost the taxpayers, the businesses, $380,000 versus $180,000, correct?
Correct.
That's utilizing the grants that are available at this time. Can you recap quickly for the other trustees the likelihood that we would be granted this, because we just we just applied for a TED grant for repaving Croswell. They had $8 million in applicants, and I think they only had $3 million to spend, so we were not approved for that project on a street project. So
Okay.
What's the likelihood that a transportation alternative grant would come our way?
Okay, this is through SEMCOG, so it's the whole Metro Detroit region that you're competing against. And they obviously have a limited amount of money that they'll be distributing. And MDOT also has a big say in the final selections. Historically, I think about 25% of the applicants that apply are successful. So there's obviously a chance that you're not going to get the grant. It's hard to predict for sure. I have heard some positive things, such as MDOT really does like to see high pedestrian areas being improved and made more safe. And this being a retail business area that has a higher pedestrian traffic level, they tend to look favorable on that. And then another thing would be is that they like to try to distribute the projects kind of geographically. So if you open up the SEMCOG Transportation Alternative Program website, you'll see a map that shows the little dots all over the Metro Detroit area where they've sent money in the past. And northern Macomb County obviously is kind of quiet relative to other areas in the metro area, so there's been very little activity historically here. So I think from that perspective, it could be a good match as well.
Perfect. And I'd just like to follow up on that. I did have a conversation with John Paul Rea from Macomb County, as well as Commissioner Don Brown. And both of them said that they would be happy to offer a letter of support that would also accompany this grant. Would that help us in our positioning?
I think it would.
Okay.
And just to clarify, the TAP grant program is to encourage alternative modes of transportation. So you'll be competing against other sidewalk projects, but also like bike trails and walkways, like railroad grade improvements, things like that, where other jurisdictions are trying to encourage walking or biking of any sort.
Okay, great. I have just a couple of comments that have come in the chat box. It's difficult for me to sort of pay attention and type back. So I'm just going to read them just so that we could acknowledge that the chats are there. Somebody's asking, Justin Parker is asking, are the current crosswalks ADA already? The answer to that question is only the southeast quadrant of the main intersection is ADA. That's the area that the road commission restructured when they did the sidewalk heading down to the bypass. So when that intersection and that light was improved, they put those improvements in. The rest of the crosswalks are not ADA compliant. Then Mr. Blanchard said he wondered if the intersection at Main Street are already ADA. So I've just answered that. What is the cost to apply for the grant and where does that money come from? So later on in the agenda, we'll get to that feature, but it should, it's an expenditure of $1,860, I believe, to actually complete that TAP grant application and send that in. So that's what we'll be addressing later, is that expenditure. Mrs. Shelley Rousseau is asking if did something happen to drive this downtown idea right now? Are the residential sidewalk repairs considered a nicety and not a safety issue? And I think we're talking about two totally different projects here. The sidewalk initiative that was put in place last year, and we continue to budget for that. We've budgeted $50,000 both of those years. We anticipate that that allocation would continue until all of our residential sidewalks are taken care of properly. So one is not more important than the other, but certainly pedestrian crossings it's not a new issue that we've dealt with. We've had Mr. Greg Tarr come to many village council meetings. I think 4 or 5 years ago, he came forward saying that there was a real concern. We have seen a couple of pedestrian vehicle accidents happen in the southwest block of town. He offered at one point, to sort of spearhead this project on, because he was really concerned about his customers who may park across the street from his business and how they were traversing Main Street to get back and forth. So there is certainly a need for pedestrian crossings in our downtown. So I don't think one is more important than the other, to answer her question. Somebody, I don't have a last name, from Thomas is saying, is there a mandate for the village to bring into compliance our crosswalks? Also, have there been accident issues with our current crosswalk supporting the additional expense? I believe, yes, we have had a number of accidents. We've looked at that data, and I turned that over to the road commission. This project would have to go before the road commission, and that was one of the areas that we addressed last fall when I originally spoke to the road commission about such a project. So this has been something that I've been working on for quite some time, and yes, we do have some accidents. As far as bringing it up to ADA compliant, when you make a change in your scheme of things, looking at your master plan, any scope of work would need to be brought back into compliance. So therefore, we couldn't just paint the stripe on the asphalt and just have a crosswalk. We would have to bring everything up with the ADA compliance. So to answer his question, I think they're just commenting back. So I think I've answered all of their questions. Is there any additional questions from any of the trustees at this point for Mr. O'Meara?
I have one.
Mr. Fowler, you have the floor.
Thank you. Are you like a nonprofit engineering company, corporation, or?
No, we're for profit.
You're for profit. Okay. Are they the only people that are applying for us?
Mr. Fowler, could you direct your questions to me, please?
I am. I'm asking you.
Okay. Yes, you're asking me.
Are they?
Sorry.
Yeah. Are they? The keyword was they. I'm talking to you. Are they the only company that has applied for this grant for us, or are there other companies out there that will apply for us? I mean, they're a for-profit corporation, so obviously their numbers will include their participation in this grant.
That is correct. We currently do not have an engineering firm that's under contract. We've worked with Hubble, Rolfe and Clark, as you may know. They are the ones that helped assist me with the TED B grant. They also assisted with the SAW grant. When we looked at this project, it was brought to my attention that Roe did a majority of this work in years prior with the DDA when we looked at a streetscape redesign. I'm talking probably 6 or 8 years ago. And when the DDA started discussing this, brought back up by some of the new board members, that's why DDA Director Lisa Hall reached out to Roe, because they had all these plans still on file. So we were able to meet with them. We were able to update the scope of the project and probably cut off a significant portion of the prep work because all those measurements were already in place.
Shouldn't we put this out for bid for other companies to at least give us the proposal that this guy gave us?
You can put out your engineering firm for bid if you wish, but I am pretty happy and excited with the scope of work that I have seen with Roe and the other events that I've attended with their firm. They're a reputable firm, and I'm quite comfortable with their capabilities.
I'm just going by the conversations in the past regarding our process and paying out monies or awarding contracts, and you're telling me all
the
the time
bid process, Zach, the bid process will be
that
on
we
the
need to put
contractor.
these things out for bid. So I'm just going right down that format of what you suggested.
The bid process will be for the contractors that are doing the work. That's where the bid would come into play.
But there's a for-profit entity in here, so there's money involved.
Yes, there is. And I approved the $1,900 to ask
You
Mr.
approved it.
O'Meara to to make this presentation. And I'm asking council to approve the other expenditure for him to fill out the application.
So you already approved the $1,900. So, okay.
Yes, I did.
Doesn't require our second to your
Nope.
approval?
It did not. It fell within my authority to approve that expenditure.
Okay.
Yes, Trustee Bartholomew, you have the floor.
Yes, just a comment, not a question, but living just down the street from the Four Corners in town, I watch these cars and they come in and they don't really slow down at all. They don't even look around, they just keep on going. And I know my company's working like, say, Rochester or someplace that has these crosswalks.
Christine, we can't hear him.
Nathan, I'm sorry. Trustee Poznanski can't hear you. Can you make sure you're unmuted? And I'll mute mine and then we won't have any feedback.
How's that? Is that better?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, much better. Thank you.
Okay, great. I'll just repeat what I said as quickly as I can. Living down the street from the Four Corners, I see cars driving into town and there's no brake lights, there's no nothing. They're just same speed. And what I was saying was when our company's working like over in Rochester where they have crosswalks, it's funny because the minute you see those, you just automatically almost slow down because you don't want to get a ticket. You know that this is a pedestrian area right off the bat. So I think that they do play, I think they are effective and would certainly make our town safer when it comes to traffic coming in or going through. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Trustee Bartholomew. Any other trustees have any questions or concerns for Mr. O'Meara at this time? All right, hearing none, I thank you for your time, Paul, and the presentation. And if you want to stay on, that would be great. Otherwise, I will reach out to you tomorrow and let you know how we're going to proceed.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. All right, we have seen our special presentation under our agenda for correspondence. We have no correspondence at this time to read, so I'm going to move
We
on.
did receive correspondence in our emails. At 4 o'clock, there was an email sent to all of us.
For public comment, so that'll be addressed under public comment. Okay, so I'm going to move on to the President's report for September 21st. Governor's restrictions remain in place on all public gatherings, so all Romeo public meetings with more than 10 participants will continue to be held remotely on Zoom. Please see the meeting notices for login information. Those can be found on our website and the Village Hall window. Somebody's talking and could you please mute yourself? Thank you. Since I have no idea how long the governor's restrictions will remain in place, I've begun planning and scheduling a virtual town hall meeting so that we can continue the village to city process and the master plan revisions. There'll be more to follow on that date later. The village hosted a meeting with representatives from Macomb County Road Commission, Bruce Township, Washington Township leadership, and the Romeo Community Schools to discuss and plan for upgrades to the safe routes to school. This is mainly affecting the new middle school location where the old high school existed. We're looking for solutions to the light timing at both Sisson Street and in front of the school, as well as the missing sidewalks, both in the village and in Washington Township. Everyone was very positive and supportive of the project, and I'm hopeful that the collaborative efforts will achieve positive results for all of our walkers. Again, pedestrian and our student safety is paramount to us here in the village, so we're working to solve those issues. The Road Commission was able to come out last week and restripe the crossing marks at the intersection of St. Clair and Bailey on Main Street, so you might notice the new white markings. Hopefully they'll last a couple of seasons. The Romeo Chamber of Commerce golf outing was held on September 15th. That was invited to play by the current chamber president, Mr. Steve Balsam. Our foursome consisted of Steve, myself, Taylor Breinart from Tower & Associates, and Marty Bulak from Henry Ford Health. I wanted to thank those gentlemen for a lovely day and for graciously overlooking my lack of golf skills. The chamber board and their staff is so supportive of this community. Kelly Stevens and Deb Cisco do an amazing job of putting these events together. So it's very nice to have an opportunity to support them as well. Please join me in congratulating Officer Richard Solier in being nominated for Outstanding Officer in 2019 and in recognition of his outstanding efforts in drunk and drugged driving prevention, education, and enforcement. Well done, sir. You've represented Romeo finely. I have just a couple of quick community announcements. There will be a candidate forum event. It's being planned by the Chamber and the Mitt TV for September 29th. There's formal invitations going out to each one of the candidates. At this time, I believe it went out yesterday. The moderator will be Judge Dennis LeDuc. I believe it will be live streamed on Mitt TV. It should give our residents the opportunity to learn a bit about each of the 6 candidates seeking the 3 trustee seats that are opening. Any resident interested in submitting a question for the candidates can direct them to Kelly at the chamber office, and the selection of those questions will be deferred to the expertise of our moderator. And a final reminder that the Community Shred Day, the second of 2 in partnership with Bruce Township, will be held this Saturday, September 26th at the Bruce Township Hall. That's from 9 to noon. All Romeo and Bruce residents are welcome to shred. There's a limit of 5 banker-sized boxes and ID will be checked. So thank you. That's my president's report. All right, do we have the clerk's report at this time?
Yes. Sorry about the lighting. Our audit is still underway. We will be having a staff meeting with our auditor this week. It'll be the first time we'll be all together in the same room due to COVID to review where we are at with the audit and what is still left to be accomplished. Last week, 6 RFPs were submitted for the audit professional services. That was due last Wednesday. This Wednesday is the deadline for our legal services to be submitted. All information will be reviewed and submitted for the October's meeting. The cemetery garage will be getting a new roof. We are looking at sometime in October for this much needed replacement. And hydrant flushing is taking place this week. Every resident should have gotten a letter in the mail, and it's also been in our window and on the website, or you can call DPW for further questions. And just to add to Officer Solier being our famous resident, famous employee this month, he is mentioned in the Macomb Now magazine, and he has a featured recipe in there with some other police officers in Michigan. That is all I have.
All right, at this time, do we have a treasurer's report? I believe Sherry Maddox was on the line. Sherry, if you're having trouble with your mute and unmute, again, you can feel free to call my office phone and I can put you on speakerphone. Sherry, are you there? All right. We can skip over Sherry and move on to the trustee reports. And if she calls in, we will certainly backtrack and get her treasurer's report. So at this time, are there any trustee reports?
Poznansky, I do have a report.
Trustee Poznansky, you have the floor.
I would like to say that Zach and I once again had a trustee talk this past Thursday. Not as much turnout, but definitely some good questions happening. One of the residents wanted me to reiterate to the board here that, that the residents are feeling they're treated poorly, and the council will be receiving a written statement shortly from her with her concerns. And then I wanted to state further that it really concerns me that no other trustee seems bothered that we don't have a budget in our packet, that we are making decisions without adequate information here. I would think that other trustees would be concerned about this. Thank you.
Are there any other trustees for reports at this time? All right, let's move on to the ex officio planning commission member. Mr. Fowler, do you have a planning commission update? Zach, could you please unmute yourself?
Are you there?
Yes, we can hear you now.
There we go. At our meeting last week, we had a special land use request, and we approved it. It was to for the AAA insurance company at that, or AAA insurance agency at that site next to the bank. So that was basically our assignment at that point. We're definitely going to review the ordinance because, as Mr. Stagner stated, that the ordinance might be outdated because there's no longer a AMP or Kroger's here in Romeo, or a grocery store, Shotwell's shoe store, or a clothing store, or clothes house. So we're going to look that ordinance over and bring it into the 2020 decade, so to speak. So Mr. Stagner was going to call in tonight, and have a more discussion on it, but that's what we're going to research as far as that point there. That's it.
All right. Thank you for that. Okay. We did not hear from our treasurer, so let's move on to our committee reports. There are no committees at this time. So let's move on into new, I believe this is Treasurer Maddox. Treasurer Maddox, I have you on speakerphone. Would you like to give your report at this time?
Yes, thank you. I just want to indicate that we have processed all tax payments, and I'm in the process of pulling all the reports to balance with both Spruce and Washington Township. And I'm working with the county to get everything settled, and I'll be scheduling an appointment to balance, and everything is looking well.
Does that complete your report?
Yes.
All right, thank you for calling in. Okay, let's move on to unfinished business. We have the Armada annexation legal description. Let me scooch ahead. Okay, so Mr. Clark asked me to put this on the agenda. I was not able to get this description in time to include it in your packets. I received it this afternoon. So just to reiterate, all of the documentation that you approved at the previous meeting and the petition language all remains the same. This is just a course of action. There was some discrepancies in the Ray Township annexation paperwork, and it was rejected at the state level due to the parcel ID, those being incorrect. So they've gone over that with a fine-tooth comb. They've construed it like you see it here, and this is the actual parcel IDs. And Mr. Clark is just asking us to approve this information to go along with the petition before we send it on to the county commissioners. So the scope of work hasn't changed. We're not annexing anything different than what we've already reviewed. It's just the legal descriptions. Mr. Clark, are you on the line? I did not see him join the meeting this evening, so perhaps something got in his way of attending. So I would just entertain a motion to approve.
He's right
the
there,
legal
Christie.
description. I'm sorry?
He's right there. He's there. He's talking, but he can't hear him.
Yes, I saw him on the screen earlier.
Yeah, I see his lips moving.
Well, if you can hear me, Mark, if you can't unmute yourself, you can certainly call the office phone, use extension 3, and I'll put you on speakerphone.
How about now?
Oh, there we go. Welcome.
It's great. It's great to be here. Can you still hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I heard what Mrs. Malzahn said, and that is correct. In addressing the issue with the Ray Township annexation, as Mrs. Malzahn mentioned, there was a deficiency in one of the legal descriptions. I had a conference call with the property owner's attorney, the assistant corporation counsel for Macomb County, and a representative of the state of Michigan. And addressing that issue, it appears that the state would like to have one complete legal description. What you had approved at the August meeting was, I believe, 5 parcels, in any event, multiple parcels, all with a distinct legal description. And what I'm recommending that you do in order to have a smoother approach with the state of Michigan is, instead of submitting our petition to the county and hopefully having it approved with the multiple legal descriptions, to submit it with one legal description. As Mrs. Malzahn said, the property under consideration is the same. It is, there's not more, there's not less. It's the exact same parcel or parcels of property, just combined into one legal description. So I would ask you or recommend to you that you approve the legal description to be attached to the petition for annexation that you have already approved.
Motion to approve?
And Hart support.
Wait, was that motion by Fowler? Oh, I'm sorry. That was a motion by Bartholomew, and that was support by Hart. Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Bartholomew,
Yes.
Hart,
Hart, yes.
Edwards,
Yes.
Poznansky,
Poznansky, yes.
Hart. I'm sorry, I already have your vote. Seidel,
Seidel, yes.
Fowler,
Yes.
and President Malzahn.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0.
All right. Thank you, everybody. We will move on in our agenda now to new business. We have 5 items. The first up is our Nixle Emergency Alert Notice System. This isn't something that the village has utilized before. It's utilized in Washington Township and many other communities. It is you upload your information and it's an emergency alert that goes out to everybody's cell phone or email or even a landline, depending on which product that you choose. If the user opts in, there are privacy settings within your cell phone that you can opt out of those. But I just thought that I would bring this forward. I don't know that it's 100% necessary, but again, just looking to have a way to emergency, to notify our residents of any potential water main breaks, or if there's a snow emergency on the street where they can't park on the street, or if there's an accident in an area that they would need to avoid. We seem to have a bit of a lag in conveying that emergency sort of information out to our residents. So there are 2 products that Chief Sokolnicki investigated for me. One is called Nixle Engage. There's a $3,000 annual fee for that, plus $360 in one-time setup fees. It will handle up to 5,000 contacts and do text or email alerts only. The second option is Nixle 360. There's a $3,500 annual charge with $420 in setup fees, up to 5,000 contacts, and this will text, email, and dial landline phones. So again, just a thought in a way that if we had an emergency, we would be able to alert them. Right now, we pretty much have the siren that goes off if there's inclement weather. But that's pretty much it. We can put it on our Facebook, we can put it on our website, but we know that we've heard that there are many people who don't utilize social media or that don't have internet. So just offering up a solution to try and be able to contact those people in case of an emergency. Any thoughts from the trustees on this?
Did you say that, this is Matt Edwards, did you say that the townships, Bruce and Washington, both also have this?
I do not think that Bruce Township utilizes it. I know that Washington Township utilizes it.
Do our residents on the Washington Township side then get service through Washington Township?
I would think that they would get the alert, yes, on the Washington Township side if they were in their database.
Poznansky question.
Poznansky, you have the floor.
Would this be coming out of village or coming out of the police budget?
This is a notification that would pretty much come from the village offices, so I would think it would come from the village budget.
Okay. You just had Chief look it up for us?
I asked him if there was a system that worked with our current 911 system, utilizing that phone or emergency. Sorry, I didn't make myself very clear on that. Or if he already had this as an option in what the police already do provide. And he said, no, he does not, but that he would ask what other municipalities were using. There are a couple of different products other than Nixle that do this sort of emergency alert, but Nixle, what seems to be the most common one.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I was confused by that.
Mm-hmm. Anything else from any of the other trustees?
Art, I just have a clarification that if Washington is using that, maybe we can look into if Washington or Bruce would have that capability and that they would cooperate with us being able to alert to maybe village specific. Now that would be going out to the larger area, but that probably wouldn't, be a problem. But because it does seem to be a cost, it's like $1,000 a year. It's $3,000 up front, and then that's a 3-year contract. So it is, for the couple times we send that out. How does the other question too? The schools have that kind of capability. Is that the same type of system they have?
I don't know what system the school uses. They have their emergency phone system, right? So everybody's phone goes off at 4 o'clock in the morning when there isn't any school alerting them the fact that they can go back to sleep after they've just been woken up. But I'm not really sure if that's Nixle. So and it's maintaining your own database. So again, I don't know that partnering with Bruce or Washington, I can certainly reach out to those two supervisors and find out if that's an option. But I think that the product itself would probably require you to have your own subscription. It's kind of like sharing a Netflix account. I don't know that they would probably be a good thing, but just my thought.
It would be more of, I'm part of Washington, so it would be Washington sending something out.
Right, but it wouldn't necessarily be an emergency in the village.
Right.
Yes.
And they would be only getting Washington. It'd be up to Bruce to be able to get their.
Correct. So it's just a thought. We don't have to do this. I can keep this on our goals and objectives. And when we look to plan for next year, it's something that we can talk about when we're looking to develop our fiscal year budget for next year. If this is something that you think is worthwhile looking into.
I think that'd be a good idea. Table it for now, and then put it maybe on next year's budget or next year's thoughts.
Great. I agree with that. So is that your motion to table?
Yes, I'll make that my motion.
Okay. Your motion is to table it until the next fiscal year goals and objectives workshop?
Correct.
Okay. And I support.
All right. We have a motion by Edwards. We have support by Hart. Is there any other discussion? All right. Roll call, please.
Edwards.
Yes.
Hart.
Yes.
Bartholomew.
Yes.
Seidel.
Seidel, yes.
Poznansky.
Poznansky, yes.
Fowler.
Yes.
President Malzahn.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
We will table that. Okay. Next up on the agenda, we have the TAP grant pedestrian crossing. Obviously, we heard the presentation. I made mention that I already approved the $1,960 for the proposal, the presentation that Mr. O'Meara presented to us tonight. If we want to move this project forward and have the grant submitted, it is due by October 14th. So we have a very short time frame, and I would need an approval of the $1,840 for the TAP grant application. Again, just to follow up, I presented this to the DDA at their last meeting. They did not get the information in their packets in advance of the meeting. So at the meeting was the first time they sort of had heard this proposal. They did not have the benefit of Mr. O'Meara attending that meeting, but I gave them the same slides that you saw tonight on the PowerPoint presentation. I made mention that we would revisit this at our October 5th DDA meeting if there was support from Village Council. There was significant support, although we did not take a roll call vote from the DDA because I presented it. This would be a joint project, and we wanted to get some input from the DDA treasurer, who was not present at the meeting, on how $90,000 would work in their budget. And so I think if we're going to entertain a motion to approve the expenditure for the TAP grant, that it would also be pending support, a formal vote of support from the DDA to move this forward. Because I don't want to fill out the application and then have it not be supported by the other half that possibly cost share in this for us.
Okay, Hart, I'd like to make a motion to proceed to approve the $1,800 to proceed to go for the grant. This is something that we have had at least 10, if not 15 years that we've been looking at. And if we have an opportunity to have a $200,000 cover that, and if we get a portion of that, then we can look at maybe the secondary recommendations, maybe not do the whole, all of those crossworks. So that's my motion to approve to.
And this is Seidel. I second Bob's motion.
Is there any other discussion from the trustees?
Postansky.
You have the floor.
I would like to say, yes, at the DDA meeting, we did talk about this, and they did want to know what Village Council had to say first before they officially made a motion on it. And from that time, I utilized social media, and I asked the question what the people would want. Do the people want crosswalks or parking? Which, of course, both very valid things. But of the 10 people that did reply, 7 said parking first, and 3 said crosswalks. I also talked to many people in person. Again, majority said parking. So I would just like to let the council know that the people would like us to work on parking first before crosswalks. Not that it makes crosswalks any less important, but that is what they would like done first.
Hart would like to make a comment.
You have the floor, Mr. Hart.
I saw that, and I was questioning when you're asking whether you want parking or crosswalks, if you're not giving any kind of a proposal for what the parking is, and you're just saying parking or crosswalk, if you're not saying we have an opportunity $200,000 to be able to do this, it's kind of like asking an open question, do you like black or blue, without the other information. To ask 10 people and have a 7-3 without the information, I think, there's not a lot of importance in that. It really doesn't, you're not defining anything. For instance, there was the proposal for parking in the church, but if you don't have the support where all of the post office employees are going to go over and park there, that's not a solution. So parking, if you say, do we want to fix parking or what does that look like? It's just an open-ended thing. Where this, we see the drawings, we see what the proposal is, and a majority of the costs can be covered if we're able to get the grant. So I think that's the difference. With all of that information, I think that could be, viewed differently.
And Bob, this is, Christy, I don't know if I can have the floor. This is Seidel.
Seidel, you have the floor.
I mean, a parking deck is millions of dollars, right? And even just to resurface a parking lot is practically $100,000 depending on the size. So, I mean, I agree with you, Bob. This is one of the few things that we can get income coming to us to help subsidize it. And it's not a total spend out of the village pocket.
Poznansky comment?
You have the floor.
Mr. Hart, where I can see your point, I think if you would like to ask a question the way you would like to ask it, you can address that on your social media as you would like. I chose to do it that way because people do not need to be influenced by the outside parameters. It was a simple question, parking or crosswalks first, what would you like? And the people spoke. The people would like parking. Thank you.
Are there any trustees, any other trustees that wanted to comment?
Yes. I have a question. Okay, thank you. Trustee Poznansky, I was just wondering.
Could you direct your questions to me?
Oh,
just to be clear, Nathan.
absolutely, absolutely. I was just going to ask if Ms. Poznansky could explain where she thought we could maybe purchase property for parking, or how we would use money to increase parking.
Well, I appreciate the question. I don't think that keeps us on topic of the tax grant for pedestrian crossings. I will.
Christine, you're muted.
Thank you, Bob. I appreciate the question, Trustee Bartholomew, but it doesn't really keep us on topic of the TAP grant pedestrian crossing. That's what we're focused on right now. I will fill in a little bit of the blanks that the DDA did investigate and talk about this 2 meetings ago. We went to consider purchasing some of the properties in town and looked at the cost share. Most of vacant lots or even those that have a structure on it that would be available for sale are on average about $100,000. If there was a structure on it, we anticipated that it would cost another $40,000 to tear that structure down, plus the infrastructure cost to build a parking lot. So for $180,000, where we can ensure public safety in areas where we know we have accidents, we know we do not have ADA compliance, we know that there's some proven dangers in our central business district, it's a much better expenditure at this time versus parking. Because you're not going to get a parking lot for $180,000. So again, we have to take a look at our budget and figure out where we can or cannot look at these projects. It's part of the goals and objectives that we talked about last summer when we developed this fiscal year. This is part of what we would budget if we were approved for the TAP grant for fiscal year 2022 and 2023. Perhaps some other money might be available for parking, but not that I know of where we would qualify for any grants.
Thank you.
So, we had a motion by Hart. We had support by Seidel. Can you take a roll call, please?
Poznansky has a question.
Poznansky, you've had the floor twice, so I will allow it this time. I would point out to you that typically Robert's Rules of Orders would say you get 1 opportunity, but go ahead, you have the floor.
Well, thank you for being so courteous. Are we going
Please
to
keep your
answer
comments respectful.
the chat questions? There are multiple chat comments.
Mm-hmm.
Are we going to address them?
We can take the roll call and I can come back to address those as I read through them.
Okay, and then I was wondering, where would the money come from for this? Streets, general fund?
For the application, it would probably come out of our street fund. I don't know if it would be local as a capital project because that's where the money would be spent.
Okay, the full project price. Where would that come from?
Well, that would be, again, where we put it for our budgeting process. When we look to budget, once we receive word how much money we've actually been given, when we budget it and look at our goals and objectives, we would determine that.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Roll call, please.
Hart, yes.
Seidel.
Yes.
Bartholomew.
Yes.
Edward.
Yes.
Fowler.
No.
Poznansky.
Poznansky, no.
President.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-2.
Okay, so we will move that forward. All right, next up we have
You said we were going to
new
address the
business
comments in the chat box at this time.
sorry.
Thank you.
Again, these questions were already they've already been answered. Can the grant be used to bring the 4 corners into ADA compliance without adding 6 additional sidewalks? That scope of work can be adjusted based on the amount of grant that we are awarded. So if we are not awarded the full application amount, you can take a look at the scope of work but all projects, all crosswalks must be brought into compliance, no matter if we do 1 or 2 or 3. So the compliance is the biggest monetary aspect of that project. And so spend money and then decide where to pull it from. The money hasn't been spent yet. We're spending money for the $1,840 for the application. The budget process will be based on the award amount, and when we look at putting that into our goals and objectives. So that's where that would come into play. But there is a running list in this office of what those projects would be addressed. So yes, it is on our radar. All right, let's move on to new business C, DPW concrete repairs. Tim Metz is with us. And so he can address the situation. I have a slide of some pictures that he presented to me today. This is the current fuel tank and the concrete that it sits on. And you can see the condition or lack thereof of this area of concern. So Tim, you have the floor.
My biggest concern is one more winter. The freeze-thaw situation that comes with winter. The fuel tank now is probably half of an inch of almost sitting on the belly of the tank. And I don't want any damage to the tank to occur. And if our state inspector comes out and sees that, he may red flag our tank, which means he'll shut the tank down and we won't be able to get any fuel besides going to the fuel station.
Are there any trustees that have any questions?
This is
for
Edwards.
Supervisor Metz?
This is Edwards.
Edwards,
Tim,
you have the floor.
Is this something that needs to be done like now, this fall, or can it wait till spring?
Well, I'd like to try and get it done this fall because I'm afraid with the freeze and thaw of winter coming that it may sink worse and possibly damage the tank.
Do we have a budget for this?
Yes.
That budget would come out of capital improvements for the DPW.
Okay. Do we know how much we're talking about, cost-wise?
You have the quotes in your packet.
You're right.
I can go back a slide. So that was Wade Company, $15,478.75. Kemp Custom Concrete for $11,820, and Wraps Concrete for $12,800.
Poznansky question.
Poznansky, you have the floor.
Tim, do you have a preference as to which bid you would be most comfortable with?
Any of those companies do excellent work. Kemp has always done work for us. I'd lean towards him just because he's the cheapest right now. There will be probably, I'm working on getting a cost on getting the tank moved because we will have to get a company in with a crane to lift that tank up and out of the way and set it back in place when we're done. So there will be more money on top of these 3 bids.
Understood.
Tim, this is Seidel. What rigging companies do we use? Do we have rigging companies that are on our list, or do we have someone in mind? Because that's a big move, right? I mean, you run the risk.
Yes, it's a 4,000-gallon tank. Of course, it will be empty when we move it. So it's basically just going to be pick it up and move it off of that pad out into the parking lot.
Okay.
I put a call out today, and I'm waiting for a call back. And I'll try and get a couple other companies, get some bids from them also.
Okay.
Poznansky would like to make a motion.
Go ahead, Trustee Poznansky.
I would like to make a motion to go with Kemp Custom Concrete in the amount of $11,820.
Art support.
We have a motion by Poznansky. We have support by Hart. Is there any other discussion?
This is Seidel. Tim, are those equal bids? Is it the same material, the same consistency concrete, the same re-rod, the same? I mean, is it a direct comparison bid, or is Wade going to do something different than Kemp and Wrap is going to do?
Nope. I told all of them what I wanted done, and they bid it out exactly the same.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, roll call, please.
Poznanski,
Poznanski, yes.
Hart,
Hart, yes.
Fowler,
Yes.
Seidel,
Seidel, yes.
Edwards,
Yes.
Bartholomew,
Yes.
President Malzahn.
Yes. Next up on your agenda, you have a special event permit for trick-or-treating in the village. This is sort of a tough one. We talked about this briefly at the DDA meeting. I've met with Clara from the Parks and Rec to see what they were anticipating. There isn't really any point person to trick-or-treating in the Central Business District. It's always just sort of happened the Saturday before. Clara just sort of piggybacked with her party in the park after that with the costume contest. They are slowly coming back to functioning at the Parks and Rec. So they're anticipating having a DJ party in the park from 12 to 4. I think that we could still offer trick-or-treating in the Central Business District. I put this on the agenda because I think it's a public safety issue to have the roads closed. Before, I know we've had a much bigger crowd than what I would anticipate having under this COVID pandemic, because certainly if parents are uncomfortable, they wouldn't send their kids. We could look to possibly put some sort of control or monitors at the end with our police or fire department, both doing a quadrant to try and limit the size of the crowd. I'm not really sure how that would work. This isn't a village-sponsored event, but I do think if it's going to happen that we have the right, we have the obligation to ensure the safety of everybody who comes to our town to trick or treat. So the street closure has to be voted on by council and then submitted by our chief of police to get approval from the county, because again, that's the county road. So at this point, I think that if the kids are going to school, that the kids should be able to trick or treat. The businesses who are comfortable passing out candy or coming up with some sort of socially distanced way to pass out the candy, whether they're putting a slingshot or down a tube or passing out a tray like they do at McDonald's when they pass your food out the drive-through window. I think it would just be up to each individual business if they chose to participate. But any thoughts from the trustees on this?
I'd like to make a motion to move forward with allowing this event to go forward.
We have a motion by Bartholomew. Do we have support? I'm sorry, was that support, Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Okay, we had a motion by Bartholomew. We have support by Hart. Is there any other discussion? Roll call.
Poznanski, question. Is the motion
Yes.
to allow the event to happen or to shut down the street?
Bartholomew, do you want to restate your motion? Was that for the street closure? Because the event's not organized by any one group, but.
No, unless I need to, but I don't think so.
So is your motion just to close down Main Street from Newberry to Washington, as the slide shows, from 11 to 1 for trick-or-treating in the village?
Yes.
Okay. Does that answer your question, Trustee Poznanski?
Yes, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Bartholomew,
Yes.
Hart, yes.
Edwards,
Yes.
Poznanski,
Poznanski, yes.
Seidel,
Seidel, yes.
Fowler,
Yes.
President Malzahn.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. Okay, let's move on. So the last item on our business, which is E, emergency inspection and well number 3. Just to follow up, this was, Tim is here and he can address the conditions of which occurred, but this expenditure has already been approved by Northern Pump and Well. It was alerted to us when Eagle came out that the well was extremely low, and we had to investigate what was the issue. Tim, did you want to address the board with any follow-up information?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, yes, upon our annual flow efficiency test when Northern Pump came out. The results came back that the well is not producing as it should. So they recommended having it cleaned, which means they're going to pull the motor, the shaft, and the bowls out of the well, clean it, and camera it to see what is causing the issue. Hopefully it's just a cleaning.
Hart, I have a question.
Trustee Hart, you have the floor.
Just is pump number 3 the one that was over where the Romeo Rock is, or no?
No, that's well number 2. Well number 2 down there is just a backup emergency well in case both of these.
Right. Because I think
go down.
They had drilled there in the immediate proximity, and they were, I think, pulling water out of the ground to maybe be able to develop there. So, okay.
Yeah, no, they're dewatering down there, but that well isn't the well.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Well, 3 and 5 at the iron removal plant, and they're right next to each other, and just the one is not.
Yep, that was my.
Like they should.
Poznansky, question?
You're muted.
Trustee Poznansky, you have the floor.
Thank you. Tim, when was the last time this well was either cleaned or maintenance done on it?
We have maintenance done every year. They come out every summer, usually around August, and do an efficiency test on it. And I believe I'd have to look at my records, I believe the last time it was actually clean and inspected and rebuilt was 2015. I'd have to double check.
Okay.
But this is the oldest well up there. The other well basically was replaced back, I'm trying to remember when it was done, like 2007 or 8, which basically had the same thing. It wasn't producing like it was, and found out that the casing of the well was bad, so we had to drill an emergency well.
Okay.
And I'm hoping that that's not the situation here.
Thank you.
So I'd like to make a motion that we move forward with having Northern Pump and Well do the work that they've proposed.
Edwards, I'll support.
We have a motion by Bartholomew. We have support by Edwards for Northern Pump and Well to do that work. Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Bartholomew,
Yes.
Edward,
Yes.
Hart,
Yes, Hart, yes.
Fowler,
Yes.
Lidle,
Idle, yes.
Poznansky,
Poznansky, yes.
President Malzahn.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
All right, we can move on to our public comments. I did receive one comment today through email, so if I could read that, and then we can open it up for the floor for any other participants. This correspondence came from Tina Eichenberg. I don't know if I said that correctly. She is at 308 East St. Clair Street. Please allow me to address a concern that I have from the August 17th, 2020 Village Trustee meeting that took place via Zoom conferencing. During that meeting, President Malzahn muted Board Trustee Zach Fowler. President Malzahn's action removed Trustee Fowler's right as a resident and a board member to speak. Furthermore, removing my right as a resident to hear what Trustee Fowler had to say. Respectfully, I'm asking that the Zoom host not mute any person speaking publicly during a board meeting unless they are saying something foul or offensive. Additionally, I would like to address the possibility of pedestrian crosswalks being added to our downtown. If our goal is to attract people to our downtown area, then we must first have a place for them to park when they arrive. People can cross the street safely by using the main intersection to access all of our downtown businesses. However, people are not always able to find parking. Before spending any money on crosswalks, please consider parking before crosswalks. Thank you. All right. At this time, I will turn my participant list on, and if there's anybody who wishes to speak now, you can dial, you can use the directions that are on the slide right now. You can dial my office phone, 752-3565. I'm option 3, and I will put you on speakerphone. I have two guests that have their hand raised. So I will, let's see. Ms. Rousseau, you have the floor. Please state your name. You'll need to unmute yourself because you're still muted.
Yep, I'm working on it. It just
Okay.
takes a minute to catch up.
Yep, there's a delay, so.
Yep. This is Shelley Pellegrino Rosso, village resident. My comment is in relation to the special presentation by the road company that was made a little bit earlier in the agenda. It was not listed on the website as an agenda item, and it wasn't posted as an agenda item. I understand that Ms. Malzahn did not get it arranged until later in the day. But as we're encouraging residents to use the website and electronics to know what's going on within town, I'm respectfully asking that this information and this presentation be represented at the next meeting after it's been posted on an agenda so that the residents can be informed and know what our village is working to do for us. I think it's important for transparency. I think it's important for the residents to be involved. And if you looked at the website earlier today and you saw no special presentations, that may or may not have influenced your decision to attend the meeting tonight. And I'm sure everybody wants all of the residents informed. And so again, I'm respectfully asking that it be put on the next agenda and revisited so that the residents have an opportunity to be informed. And then perhaps in the future, a special presentation could be delayed so the residents are informed and know that there's going to be something. I get that the grant is coming and all of that good stuff, but I think if there's no rush and no urgency, we need to respect that the residents need to be informed. Thank you.
All right. I would point out to you under the agenda a new business B, which lists pedestrian crossings. So it was on the agenda, but we can certainly make the presentation available through a link on the website, and we will be in discussions further when we actually find out what the award on the grant is. That might give us a better scope of how to engage the public. We will also be holding a public hearing at our next DDA meeting, which is October 5th, reviewing this presentation. So I encourage you to log in to watch the presentation there as well. All right, Mr. Blanchard, you have the floor. If you'd like to unmute yourself.
Good evening, thank you. I just wanted to clarify that at the last meeting, I had asked if Trustee Seidel had voted on an annexation of the alley to give it to all the surrounding residents so that they could get that for the new business. And I see through where he actually did vote last month, but he was reclused the month before. Can we just make that a matter of record so it's correct? And then also,
go ahead.
Sorry, my phone was going off. I had to mute it. And also, I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought, but that's all I had at this time.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Blanchard. Thomas, could you please state your name and your address?
Yes, this is Thomas. I was asking in regards to
Thomas, can you please give us your address and your last name?
No, as no one else on this call has given their names or addresses, so I can give you my question if you'd care to answer it.
All public comment, and I believe I did announce both of their last names as Mr. Blanchard, and Ms. Rousseau did introduce herself. So would you like to please leave us your address and your last name?
Again, there wasn't, they didn't state their addresses, so no, I will not be doing that.
Could you please provide us your last name?
Sure, it's Smith.
Your question? You have 3 minutes, sir.
Perfect. So the ADA crosswalk compliance, if we start that project, it's correct that we have to bring all the crosswalks up to ADA standard. Is that correct?
This is your public comment. It's not for questions. Go ahead.
Okay. So if we didn't start the project, then we wouldn't have anything to bring up to standard or to spec. So by the sheer fact that we're starting these processes, we would then preclude ourselves to then bringing all these crosswalks up, where if we didn't start the project at all, just like any renovation at all, you wouldn't have to bring these crosswalks up. So the current crosswalk, if there are concerns about safety and there are issues about needing them to be addressed, and there's concerns whether or not people would be crossing, wouldn't it be more pertinent to address those first as aside from expanding the crosswalk project and incurring the additional costs as it is, regardless of grants, because again, that's not the issue at this point. It's a safety issue, correct?
Is that your comment?
That's my comment.
All right, thank you very much. Is there anybody else who wanted to raise their hand or to dial in to the office number 752-3565? I just want to hang out here just for a few awkward moments, just to give everybody an ample opportunity. All right, hearing none, I'm going to close public forum, and I would give the floor to anybody who would make a motion to adjourn. Trustee Fowler?
Art support.
To adjourn. Do we have support?
Art support.
We have a motion by Fowler. We have support by Hart for adjournment. Any other? Okay. Roll call, please.
Fowler?
Yes.
Hart?
Yes.
Poznanski, yes.
Little yes.
Edwards?
Yes.
Bartholomew?
Yes.
President Lozon? Yes. All right. Thank you, everybody. If there are additional follow-up questions, you can always reach me in the village offices. Thank you and have a good night.
Thank you. Good night.